Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 4 and the last part in my Saguaros series. And if you want to follow along with traditional media like acrylics, check out part 1 in this series where I have a list of all the paints and the canvases and the brushes that I use. We're using Infinite Painter for Android, and I'm going to go ahead and sort of work on the final highlights and shadows and the final details in this painting. And so here I'm kind of working on the shadows of the distant mountains. I wanted to add a little bit more of some dark blue there and work on the distant clouds a little bit because this shows a distant rainstorm, and I wanted to get that across in my painting and just show that there's kind of a distant rainstorm behind the hills there. And so I'm using some of the darker blue to try to get that look that you can see in the photograph. And so I'm using a technique that how to look at your painting from a distance, and when you're using digital, you just kind of shrink your painting down, and then you can see what it looks like from a distance. If you're doing this traditionally, you need to step back about 6 feet from your canvas and see what it looks like from a distance. And you need to do this periodically from time to time so that you can see what it looks like and what the average viewer will see when they buy your painting and they put it on their wall. The average viewing distance is about 6 to 8 feet, I suppose. I think that's about right. So you definitely want to check it out and see what it looks like from a distance. And so here I'm just kind of working some more on the shape of the middle mountain again. I want to get that craggy, rocky look across in the painting. And so I'm using some really dark brown. You can use burnt umber for this if you're following along traditionally in your number 3 round or script brush. And you just kind of want to get some jagged rocks poking out from the grass that's on top of the mountain there, and you want to try to get that shape. It just gives a lot of interest to the painting. And then you want to kind of smudge those lines out because you don't want it to look like a drawing here. I mean, it's fine if you're doing a drawing and you want that, but we want a painting here and we want it to not have any hard edges. So you want to soften those edges on the canyons and the jagged rocks that stick out and the shadows there. So that's what I'm trying to do, is give that look of the canyons and the rocks that stick out from the grass, but we want to keep that edge a little bit. We want to try to keep it so that it defines the shape of the mountains, but we also want to kind of soften it in. It's sort of a delicate balance there. So what I like to do is just rub right up to the edge of the color where it changes and just try to soften it, but not completely destroy all the dark color. And then I'm adding a little bit more shadow color to the rocks that are on top of the mountain there. You want those to look jagged, and so I'm trying to give that look. And also the shadow that's being cast on the top of the mountain is by the sun, and also the clouds are casting a little bit of a shadow on that hill. And we want to try to get that look if we can. And so I'm trying to add some highlights to the rocks there with a little bit of some yellows, and try to get the look of the jagged craggy rocks that are sticking out on that side there. So I want to get some kind of a really light yellow for the highlights, and try to put that on the vegetation, and try to get a look like there's some grass in front of the saguaros and things like that, just to give it some depth. We want to make sure that the saguaros don't look like they're floating or anything like that. We want to work on the tree, and I decided that the tree was too tall. So when you decide something like that and you're doing it traditionally, you have to paint over it. So you just take some of that mountain color and paint over the top of that, and just go back over it again. If you're doing this digitally, you should have had it on a separate layer, which I didn't. So I had to do it like you do traditionally, and just kind of paint over with all the colors. And so you kind of have to go back and draw in the canyons that you had there, or paint in the canyons again, use the dark and light colors, and just kind of go over what you had there, and put it back in. And that's just kind of something that you have to do when you decide to make a correction like that. And so that's what I did, because I thought that the tree was too tall. It was too tall, and it was taking away from the saguaro there that is supposed to be our main eye stopper. And an eye stopper is what keeps the viewer's eye from going off the canvas and losing interest in the painting. And you usually put these in the corners of your paintings. And so that big giant saguaro, that's sort of an eye stopper. And then so here I'm going back over the tree, the old dead tree, and trying to make it look a little bit thicker and a little bit darker, but I didn't want it to be so tall. So I went back over it with some dark brown, and then some light grayish color for the highlight of it. And I think that that looks better now. It's not so intrusive in the painting there, and you can actually see that the saguaro is more the main focal point there. And that's what we want, is the saguaros to be where you can see them. And that just kind of tells everybody immediately, oh, this is a desert scene, because there's saguaros in it. And it's probably in Arizona, because that's where the saguaros are. So that's what I was trying to get across there. And then I went back in and put some more lighter grass color over the shadow under that tree, and made the tree sit down more, and just tried to get a look of some more vegetation at the foot of the old dead tree. And I'm just going around and sort of looking at what needs to be fixed and changed here, and the final details and highlights. And then I went ahead and signed it, and decided that that was pretty good, and I called it done. So this is the end of part 4 of my saguaros, and it's the end of my saguaro series. And so this whole painting was just kind of an exercise to see what would happen if I used a toned canvas. And I really like how it came out. I like that I let some of the burnt orange peep through into the sky, and the clouds turned out really nice. I thought it added sort of a warm tone to the overall painting. And so I think that I will try to do some more with this toned canvas. It really did come out nice, I thought. So stay tuned and we'll try to do some more like this. And hit the subscribe button. And thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below. And I will catch you later.